Okay, so we didn't get a good answer actually to the joins question. So let's ask someone else. Already forgot who did I ask. Akmal. Yeah, Akmal is out. Asset.
Yes, hi.
Right.
Joins, they are used in order to combine the data from the multiple tables and in a single result. So we need to specify the column, or it could be multiple columns that they create the relationships between these tables. And the syntax is join and then on. Uh, with on, we provide the actual column that's going to be used to in order to join these tables.
Mhm.
Uh, there's there's three types of join: inner, left, and right. Inner join returns only matching data from both tables. Um, the left join returns matching data and the data from the left table, like plus the left. And when also we have a left join, if there's no match for the left table, the columns come from like right will be null. And the same thing for the right join. We have matching data and the data from the right table.
Yeah, that's perfect. So what about full outer join?
Um, full auto join returns matching records plus unmatching records.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that's a very good answer. Thank you, Asset.
Thank you.
Let me do. I remember somebody asked about test number 3, right? From the homework. Okay. Do you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so we need account ID, name, owner first name, last name, and type of ownership. And these are three tables that we need to join: account, user profile, ownership type. So let's look at that. So we see account ID and account name. Then user profile will get last name, first name, and type of ownership will come from ownership type table, right? Look, ownership type name will be the account, and user profile, let's user role. User profile is where we get first name and last name. So let's start. So we have an account, we'll call it T1. And okay, that's one thing. Then we need ownership type and user profile. So we can see that in account, we already have ownership type ID. So we can just join ownership type, right? Where's that table? T1 ownership type ID. So we are joining by ownership type ID. You see from account table. to ownership type table, just ID, which is going to be T2. Now we can include the ownership type. Okay, that's one thing. Now we also need owner information, first name and last name. So we see that owner ID, so it's most likely matching not the user profile ID, but the user ID. Right? Remember, like user profile cannot be owner. Owner can be a person or a user, right? And then user has a profile, so we will be able to match, join it through the users table, even though we don't need it. So we'll need join users. Owner ID, I believe. Right, so we don't add anything to our select clause because we don't need anything from users. So we'll just proceed with joining our user profile table. Profile ID. Okay, and now we have access to our first name and last name. So I'm gonna place it here. First name. Last name. Something didn't work. So something like this. So do you have any questions so we can talk about it?
Do we have database schema?
No, we don't.
Why? Dan told us that everyone should have it.
Everyone should, but nobody does.
Ah, really?
Yeah. I never seen schema in my life at work. So I've been working with more than 3 or 4 different databases. Even not 4, like more than 4 for sure. And never there's been a schema.
It's very convenient. You saw everything, every relation, and
Yeah.
you don't have to go and guess where to find this relation.
So I'm gonna share. As you saw, I added this classic models database.
Mhm.
I don't know, you should refresh if you don't see it. And I'm gonna share a schema for it. I have schema for that one. So you can
Cool.
see where was it. You can practice on that one. General. Maybe the main reason there is no schema because at work tables are just huge. There are so many tables, so I don't know which schema would fit. even. It would take tremendous amount of work to put that schema together as well, so nobody just wanna, take care of it.
How long it can be for us if we want to create some schema, for example, for digital bank?
Digital bank, it shouldn't be that hard. We only have less than 20 tables, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you see on the picture, shouldn't be too hard for digital bank, but at work, you'll see there will be at least 100 tables. I mean, of course, depends on your application that you're working on, but if it's a like ERP system for a large corporation, it's gonna be huge. And tables relate to each other in so many different ways, then it's just it's hard.
And basically, it's DevOps responsibility to create these schemas.
It's more like the people who created the database than DevOps.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so if you don't understand from names in your company, you can always ask developer this because you're testing the feature that he built, so he would know what database tables you should use. So
Can we say as our can we say as our accomplishment that we create some schema for our database if it's not very huge?
you can, yeah, that's a good idea.
Is it real?
I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Nobody stops you. Yeah, that's some good example.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully it's not gonna cause any troubles like any other questions, but nothing too hard, right? So another thing that might cause a question, and these are one of the hardest questions I find in interviews, they're not that common, but some people ask, tell me about your tables. Like you don't need to tell specific information, but what type of data do you get in your tables? How is the layout? Right? You cannot really disclose the database, but things like, oh, we have account table and so on. Like not specific, nothing specific, no names, no columns, but just what type of data, how many different tables you use, like things like that. They might ask specific question about project, and this might get intense. So when you mention you created a schema, that will put you in a position, you should know your tables if they ask.
In
What
case
if
of
what if
sorry.
you're like what if you're like don't like mention that you're working with data tables at your last work?
It's not a good
They're not gonna ask you?
Most likely they won't, but still, like, if they assume that you do because database involved in a lot of the test scenarios. So, if you didn't use any database at all, it's just not good. There's no credit for you. Like, and you just did UI in some way that just the functional like testing. But you will include database, your resume, you should have it. So even if you don't have it in your last company, they might still ask if you have in previous companies because they need, right? If they need someone who will be dealing with databases, they will be asking database questions anyway.
So there is like testers QAs who test only databases.
I
Right.
test only databases, yeah.
But don't you test APIs?
No.
No.
So right now, it's in a way right now it's balanced, not really APIs, but we have a way access database through the API. We're dealing with different databases now. So I told you I would show you. So I can show you an example. So right now I'm dealing with non-relational database, no SQL database. So data is stored in this format. And you will see this format when you start dealing with API. That's exactly the same format. So these called NoSQL database or non-relational database. So there is a way to get data from API, but I'm not testing APIs, if that makes sense. So in database, there's a lot of things to test too. If it comes to specific teams, like we have business intelligence team that do reporting applications. So all they need is data. They use some other tools that build reports. You just need to put data there. So they would go to main like ERP system database, try to get the only data they need, and then they will have their own separate database server. So on daily basis, they would be loading the data from the main database server to their server. So they would change names, they would combine some columns, they would join some tables and just create a separate table that only like for their purpose, for the reporting purpose. So of course you need to test that. You make sure they bring all the data, you make sure they bring all the records, there's nothing breaking, things like that. Formats are the same, or not the same, but what's as expected, and so on. Nothing extra, no duplicates, things like that. And automation is a very good example here because you can't go through huge like number of records just visually, right? It's in a way even impossible to test manually. If there's like hundreds of thousands of records, you cannot go through each one of them. I mean, you can do that manually with queries. That's actually, that might make sense. But like looking through them visually wouldn't be possible. So you need to be good at SQL if you do manual, or if you do automation, you need to be good in both SQL and like not good, but no automation.
Can I just clarify? We have UI testers, we have API testers, we have database testers, but when we are testing UI part, we also should deal with database as well as API.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually when you test UI and API, you just do database for validation. Just
Yeah.
compare, yeah. In
And
database,
this is what we will talk about in interview.
yes, yeah. You don't say, even though it's easy, if there's not much to talk about, if you, I mean, it might not be easy to do it, but to talk about it, there's not much to test. You just compare the counts, compare records, compare counts, and so on. So if someone wants to research and just add something extra to their resume, that's a good thing. So this is ETL. Let me put it somewhere. So ETL, it's just extract, transfer, load. And a lot, not a lot, but you'll see positions that require ETL testing when you're on the market. So that's what I'm talking about, like when they take data from the main database, load them into their own database server, but they take only data they need, and they change the format, the tables, they create their own tables. And they might bring, for example, account type, and account standing as 3 tables from our main server into their server into only 1 table. Right? So they would exclude some columns, they might add some columns, some calculations, and so on. So this is ETL. The extract, take from one server, transfer, make some additions, change the format if you need, and load into different servers. Same data migration, if they migrate from one database to another database. For example, some companies might migrate from a relational database into this format for whatever reason, or the opposite, from document database to relational database. So when they load one-to-one, they don't do any like any transformation to the data. So this is just data migration, and it might be done once, and you can forget about it. But ETL processes, they do every day. They take data from the main server, put into their own server, because they always need fresh data.
Are you talking about DevOps? Yes. They deal with it.
No, DevOps is completely different. This is more like business intelligence, they call. For the reporting, they always do ETL process. ETL can be done by anyone. It can be small, it can be huge. It's a different topic, yeah, but there's not much. It's not very hard to talk about it. So if you ever decide to learn more about it, you can add to your resume. Okay. So,
Nazar, I'm sorry. Can I ask you what tools do you use for your NoSQL databases?
so we have Cosmos database. So for Cosmos database, they have their own Java API, like you add the Maven dependency. So that's one thing. And for the other server that we are loading to, there is a way to access this through REST API. So just I'm getting data through REST. So you're gonna learn how you deal with API. So that's how I'm doing it. But first year when I was working, I was dealing with relational databases, and that's only 2 tools that we will learn, JDBC and one other helping tool. Cosmos, I think that's what it's called, Cosmos Java API. Or SDK. Let's see, Azure Cosmos DB SQL Java API SDK. So it's a Java software development kit special for Azure Cosmos database.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Okay, so any questions on this query? Yeah, with schema it would be super simple, I know. But you'll be lucky if you have schema in your company.
Nazar, can you please once again explain about the on? I have the same, but mine is not working. But I didn't really get it, or how we connect this on.
So for on clause,
Step of dependency, how to connect, you have to have something similar.
yeah. So let me open that schema that I just
Yeah,
shared.
I understand that, but in this schema, I mean, query, I don't get it.
Like the schema itself.
No, I mean this in this query.
Let's see. So first, what do we have first? First, we join the type, right? To get account type from, well, not account, ownership type. So this one will give us ownership type, and you see account has ownership type ID. So that already makes me like understand that there is a connection to ownership to some table. And if I look, I'll find ownership type table. So that's one connection. Then we connect the same. Hold on. So this is ownership type. Then we join user to the same account table. So you see account also has owner ID. To get account of an owner. Right? And then the last one is to get profile. You see, so we needed to accomplish is the type of ownership, right? Or, oh no, first name and last name. So first name and last name are not present in user's table. There is no first name, last name. But account table also does not have relationship to user profile where first name and last name can be found. So there's no relationship between these two tables, direct relationship. That's why we need to join users table since we have relationship, and users on their hand, they have relationship to user profile.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Sure. Okay. So, okay, let's start. So I had the choice today. I was gonna, one thing we didn't cover is data types you can research on your own. We did talk about it briefly. So there's a lot of information. Please try to read through it. For interview, it might be useful. So what we didn't get to is the creating tables, deleting tables, inserting records, updating records, and deleting records. So what I would suggest is, this is not something very important. And starting with automation, and if we clear an automation, we can cover this in the end, the last class. Also, if you want to research on your own, in this database, classic model, so I gave permission to create tables, records, and so on. So you can do whatever you want with this database. Try to insert records if you want to learn on your own, and delete records and so on. We'll try to cover that. We'll see how it's, but automation is more priority than inserting, deleting, and so on. And if we can't, I'll do a mentoring on that. That should be enough too. Okay. So we'll start automation. Okay, so the main way to connect to a database is with JDBC. JDBC is a Java, it's like dependency or tool, It stands for Java Database Connectivity, JDBC. That's what we're gonna use to connect the database with Java. So what is JDBC? Okay, first thing, guys, don't get confused with this API here. So what API actually means, it's application programming interface. So the API you're gonna learn is slightly different and might be confusing in this context because in simple way, it's just SDK or some set of created methods, classes, and so on. So JDBC is API that can, Java API that can access any kind of tabular data, special data stored in the relational database. JDBC works with Java on variety of platforms, Windows, macOS, Unix. Again, JDBC is Java Database Connectivity. It's a standard API for database independent connectivity between Java, programming language, and wide range of databases. So JDBC is used with Java to connect to all kinds of databases, right? It's like an interface. So it gives an ability, but in order to connect to a specific database, we will need a driver. So same thing like Selenium, right? We have Selenium, which is an interface in a way, and then you need a Chrome driver or Firefox driver in order to open a specific browser, right? So the same thing we'll see here. Functionalities. JDBC library includes APIs for each of the tasks mentioned below that are commonly associated with database usage. Creating a connection to database, creating SQL statements, executing queries, and viewing, modifying the resulting records. So we will be focusing on executing queries, right? And of course, making connections. Okay, now how is this actually working? So you see, we have JDBC API. You simply import it to your Java application. So we will do, hold on. JDBC is actually, should be included with Java. We will import the driver. And what happens, JDBC API, like I said, it's an interface. So each driver implements the JDBC interface in their own way. So the same like WebDriver, right? The WebDriver is an interface equals to new Chrome driver. You assign the implementation of the actual driver. Okay, is this terms confusing, guys?
It's better like one time to see how it works.
We won't see anything, but okay, so again, it's just we need each driver for each database. So today we're working with MySQL. If you get to work and you will have Oracle database or like MySQL server, you will need to find a specific driver for JDBC. Okay.
Yep.
So JDBC driver, it's a software component that enables Java application to interact with database. So in simple terms, lets you connect your Java application to the database. Okay. To connect with individual database, JDBC, Java Database Connectivity, requires drivers for each database. So JDBC driver gives out the connection to the database and implements the protocol for transferring the query and result between client and database. In simple terms, driver is responsible for sending your query to the database and bringing back the result from the database. JDBC itself, so pretty much you cannot do anything with JDBC itself without a driver. Same thing like you wouldn't be able to open a browser without a Chrome driver, with simply web driver. Okay, I'm gonna share dependency. Still having troubles opening your project, but you can start.
So for each database, we should add its own dependency, right?
Yeah. So its own driver.
Own driver, yeah.
Yep.
Excuse me, with what project we're working with now?
So most
Where?
likely. So what I got this one. Let me see.
I think it's Sophia's project, full.
Full 2021.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you.
Sure. See if I can copy that properly. Okay, so I shared the dependency. Now let me try to open that project. You guys can start the same. Open that 2020 UI project and include dependency in your form XML.
Are you guys using Meetup or practice module?
So is there a single form or they all have different forms?
We have different forms.
We have two modules, practice
Kind
and
of
meetup.
hybrid, you know.
Okay, so let's do, let me see. Let's meet up and practice.
One project we use Cucumber, and with another we're not using Cucumber.
So let's go to practice. Let's do practice first and then. So Meetup is an application itself too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do practice and then when you guys, you will need to implement the same thing pretty much for your this digital bank application. I'm not sure where I don't. Okay, that's better. Yeah, did you guys include the dependency?
Yep.
Okay. So we'll go to utilities. And create new class DB utils. You can call it whatever you want. And before I'll just start with with simple explanation. What do we have and how do we deal with this? So we should have let's go back to the presentation, go step by step. Okay, how does the connection works? How does JDBC connection works? Step by step. So there are total 5 steps to connect any Java application with the database using JDBC. So the first step is register the driver class. So right now it's optional since the new version JDBC, that's what it says here. Since the JDBC 4 explicitly registering driver is optional, JDBC driver manager can detect and load the driver automatically. So we can skip first step. These 4 steps are important. And it's also important to remember them because this might come up on an interview. What are the steps connecting to the database with JDBC? So first, we create a connection. Then we create a statement. We execute our queries and we close the connection. Okay. So let's start from the first one. Okay, so get connection method of driver manager class is used to establish connection with the database. It requires JDBC connection link. This connection link, let me actually put that to interview questions. Nine. What are the steps? multi-connection. So connection link is another interview question. What connection link is like consist of? So first is the keyword JDBC. Second is the type of the driver. So the type of the database, right? Also, then the host. Remember, we use the host to connect to digital bank database. Remember on the beginning when I shared, host is an IP address of the server. And also, so you don't get confused, when you at work, you connect to the network. You connect to the company's network through a VPN. I don't know if you heard about it, if somebody talked about it. Do you guys know what is VPN?
Yep.
Okay. So you connect to the network, company network through VPN. So most likely you will be on the same network as the database server. So sometimes if you ask them, can you share the host? They might share something like, I don't know, EWD, DB, something like that. So this is going to be the host. Instead of IP address, it's abbreviation, or whatever they named it. So you just put it in the host section. Okay, then there is a port. If it's not the name of the server, if you put IP address like we do, then you'll need to have the port. If it's a name, then it's going to replace host and port. Okay, then we specify the database that we want to connect to. See, like in our case, we have 3 databases. So with single connection, you can connect to either one of the databases, or you can connect to the master, like outside of the database. So whenever, if you want to query all 3 databases within the same server, you don't specify the database. But in your queries, remember, like we talked about it, you'll need to have full path, digital bank dot users. But if you connect to a specific database, it's like the use keyword that we use. So you can just select from users. You don't need the full path. Okay, here. Okay, hold on. So host port, host name and port number of the computer hosting your database. If not specified, the default values of host and port are the local host and 3306, something like that. Then database is the name of the database to connect to. If not specified, connection is made with no default database. So if you don't have database name, like I said, you'll connect to the server, and in order to run your queries, you'll need the full path to the table. Database name dot table name. Okay. And property name. So the one we skipped, these are the credentials. So as you see in the example, user equals student, so username, and password equals password. So we provide the credentials. So this is what the connection link consists of. Driver, type, then the host and port, database name, which is optional, and credentials or properties. Okay, so let's see how that works. So, like I said, there is a connection interface, which is coming from Java SQL connection. And I already forgot this one. So we cannot create a new connection.
So we're creating only once this connection, right, for database?
Yes, unless you're dealing with databases, because like in my case, I needed to have multiple connections at the same time, but that's not the case with the regular, like whenever you deal with regular UI or API testing, you're good with one connection.
But can you switch with help of something like configuration.properties or something like that?
Yeah, it depends how you set up. Of course, that would be perfect, but you know, you need to set up in a proper way. So the way we're gonna do it something close to WebDriver, so you have only one open connection at a time.
You got it. Thank you. In singleton way. But yeah, like I said, usually one application has one server. So you don't need to have multiple connections, right? If you connection is established with the server. So if you have multiple databases within a server, then you don't specify a database name. And then you can query from multiple databases. But then if you need to connect to multiple servers, then this is a different type of task. God, I already forgot the basic things. So this thing called driver manager. And that's where URL goes. Okay, so let's try to build this URL based on the example here. If I can copy it. Okay, so we go with JDBC. In our case, it's not Oracle, it's MySQL. And put it here so I can see it. Then we provide server. I shared it in general some time ago.
So this is the host, and port is 3306. So it's column 3306. And in our case, we will connect to digital bank. And user, the same thing, I shared it in general. So it's eBank and password. The password. For now, just add exception. Okay, I'm gonna share this in the general. If there is no exception, then it's good. Okay, were you guys able to do that?
Yes, and it was only a second step, create connection, yes?
Yes.
Mhm.
So remember, we don't register driver because driver manager after the 4th version of JDBC automatically detects the driver that we have imported. And we provide it actually in our JDBC link.
I have .get connection complaining and connection.close too.
Yeah, just add it to the.
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, we'll handle these connections later. For now, just let's go through basic stuff.
Why we need to close the connection?
We'll talk about that too. It's an important step to close the connection. So when we establish a connection, we create like a stream between our application and database. So it takes your resources, your processing power, and just eating the resources. So they call that data leak or resource leak, I believe. So if you if you have an open connection and you're not using it, you're wasting resources. So it's important to close the connection. Again, this is something that might come up on an interview. When you're working, connection is closed when application is not running. So if your tests all completed, execution is complete, connection will close itself. It's not gonna be open if your application is not running. So usually tests run for an hour or so, and if you keep the connection open, it's not gonna break anything. It's not gonna resource leak. Like it is, but it's not something you would notice even. On the other hand, this JDBC is used by applications, a lot of like regular main applications. So if our main application continuously keeping the connection open to the database, and it might create, if there's a bug or like just the way they build it wrong, keep opening new connections and not closing old connections, eventually it might just eat up all the resources and the application will just shut down, you know. So that's the thing. But in our case, our application will shut down anyway, you know, after tests are completed, it will stop the execution.
Can you put some comments on this one so we're gonna remember? Thank you.
So JDBC Java database connectivity. Okay, connection. Let me see if I phrase it correctly. Memory leak, not resource, memory leak. So it's more like processing memory, right? But so let's just picture that it's important. You don't have to worry about it because like you don't have this memory leak as soon as your tests are over. It's not like your application continuously running. But it's always important to close the connection. And in some cases, like for example, this one, I can see that if I'm not using my, even though I'm not closing application, my application stops running. But I know when I work with Cosmos, that API that I mentioned, if I don't close the connection, my application will be running continuously. It's not going to stop. But with JDBC, it's a little smarter. Okay, so that's the first step. Let's put no. Creating or JDBC workflow. What was it? Open connection with get connection. That's a driver type. Let's put it here. MySQL, Oracle. Let me see. Okay, server. database server. Credentials is nothing but properties. Okay, so we're through the first step. So let's quickly cover and go on the break. So that was the first step, create a connection. Second step is to create a statement. Statement. And statement is created by connection. So this is straightforward. You don't need to provide anything. It's just an important step. And execute the query. Let's say account. Is it account or accounts? Account. Execute query comes into result set. And so most of the thing we'll be doing is to dealing with the result set. So this is as far as it gets. You just put the query here, you get the result. But dealing with result set is a whole different thing. So I'll just put it for now, we'll cover it just so we can see something. But the main thing, just to see what we execute, but we'll talk about the working with result set throughout the whole automation part. I'll print only one column because we need to explicitly say if that's going to work. Anyway. Yes, I see we printed IDs. Okay, not IDs, 1 second. So we executed this query. Yeah, we printed IDs. So you see, I select which column I want to print. First, second, we can select by ID, by name, and so on. Now we printed amounts. Like current balance. See, there is no two-string implementation for result set, so we need to create utilities that will process this result set and make our life easier.
Excuse me, Nazar, I skip it. What did you do with that amount balance? Because my print only IDs.
I changed the ID of the column.
Uh-huh.
So I changed
Right.
3. I should get.
I just think it's work like a limit. All right.
Date closed. Now it's going to be null. So this is date closed. Let's print name. So it's 3, 4, or let's get by the name. So we can get by the ID of the column or by the name of the column. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Let's go to the break now, or let me finish the notes. So now we got the name.
One more question before the break. Do we need to follow the structure as we do in MySQL? Like the select from and blah 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 like this, but the separate row?
Not really, but yeah, it's always good to, if you're gonna add logs, like to print your queries so they look nicer. If you can store your queries in property files too, you know. It all depends. We'll talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
Always good to follow your structure. Create statement with connection. Create statement. Create execute query by statement dot execute query. Five close connection. Okay. So I'm gonna start the timer. Okay, we'll see you guys in 15 minutes. Prepare some questions if you have, and we'll continue.
Thank you.
Thank you. guys, are you back?
Yep.
So do you guys have any questions so far?
Yeah, Nazar, in BGD framework, would you suggest closing connection to database after each test, like an after hook, or just once after all the tests are done?
Yeah, I was gonna talk about it. So I would suggest you closing it after all the tests are done. It also, first of all, it depends how many queries you're running, but if you have, let's say, 300-400 test cases, and at least half of them, which is 100-150 test cases, creating and closing connection to database, it will take a lot of time. So creating and closing connection a resourceful process. So it's gonna take a lot of time, and it's just gonna make your test super slow. Not super slow, but much slower if you would rather close the connection, open connection at the first time you're trying to query and close them after all the tests. Close the connection.
Thank you.
But another thing, okay, before we go, do we have any other questions? Okay, so not only connection has to be closed, we also need to close result set, and we need to close the statement. So the main thing, when connection is closed, statements and result sets associated with this connection are closed automatically. So this is not very important steps. However, everybody expects this, so it's the good practice. Even though, like I said, if you close the connection, it's automatically closing result set and closing the statement. But people like to see this closing the result set and closing the statement. Another thing about it, in order to reuse the statement, meaning send a second query, we need to close the result set. So let's see, if I don't close this result set and try to create another one, from, what is it, profile, users, let's say. Let's do the same thing. So we will build our utilities, and that's a good practice. After you process your result set, you need to close the result set in order to query the second time under the same statement. So you see, we got an exception. Users, right? We do have two columns. So that's the reason, because the previous result set is not closed. So let's try closing the first one before we query the second time. See if that works. Or maybe we don't have a column, maybe it's something wrong with the query. That. Okay, this worked. Now let's see if we don't close the result set. So anyway, so result set has to be closed after you process it, even if it breaks or it doesn't break. Because in this case, result set does have a like memory leak. So we will, the way we're gonna structure it, we're gonna close the result set every time. So when you're done with it, there's no reason to keep it open. Okay, let me remove this. And put the note.
Nazar, why it can give me a SQL exception operation not allowed after result set closed?
You close the result set and then you try to access it. So we need to create it, access
Yeah,
it.
I created a new one.
What do you mean?
Now, as you delete, it was as it was from you.
Like this?
No, I have two results set, RS and RS2.
Mm-hmm.
I closed RS after first one, and I closed RS2 after second one, and it gives me a SQL exception.
Yeah, I think you try to close the same arrest twice. Or you try to access arrest. So if I closed it and then I try to access it, it's gonna give me exception. Or if I close it twice, after I close it again, that's gonna give an exception too. So for now, just remove, keep only one. Creation, access, close. Okay. So with that, there is another thing that we need to cover. In order to process result set better. Okay, so I'm gonna delete this for now.
Nazar, may I ask you a question? It's unrelated to what we are studying now, kind of. Can we create database SQL files in IntelliJ and work with them? Have you tried it?
I know the paid version of IntelliJ has an access to database, so you can do the queries and everything. So that would make sense.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
But I never worked with it
Mhm.
with the paid version. Yeah, but people say it's much easier and nicer this way. So you can have your connections. So pretty much it's going to be a combination of IntelliJ and something like Workbench. But yeah, you can always store the files, SQL files, but how you're going to use them, it's going to be your, I think it's always easier to have it as a property files if you want to store your queries.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so metadata. It's a data about data, if it makes sense. So what that is, so metadata includes, so we have a result data when we query, right? And we have metadata or data about data. So these include headers, like the names of the columns, how many columns do you have? So it's easier for us to work with the result set. As you see, result set, we don't have much capability. We can go to the next and get a specific column, but we don't know, from Java perspective, we don't know what are the name of the columns. Like I used here, rs.getName. I know it, that there is a name, but, and I put it, like I hard-coded it. But from Java, it's, so this information only accessible through metadata. And I'll see how that's gonna help. So let's print it out, first of all, just to see. So we can get column count. So let's do it this way. So column count starts with 1. So we'll do less than equal to column count and just print get column name I. And we have the names of the columns: ID, current balance, date closed, date opened, interest rate, name, and so on. So with this, let's create a method. So just collect the column names. Let's make it column names. So first thing here, I'm gonna make my connection. So we don't have everything in main method. We covered open connection. Okay. Okay, I'll put that all in try catch. Here you can do whatever you want. Have. Okay, so just make your test fail instead of getting exception, something like that. Okay, so that's open. So now we can delete all this stuff and go step by step. And I'm gonna create close.
Nazar, you are too fast.
But you don't have to retype, I'm gonna share this. So for
But
now,
I didn't understand what you're doing.
I just retyped everything in a method. So pretty much the same thing we did. Create a connection, create a statement. So if connection is not opened, we'll make them static. Okay, so first of all, connection and statement are static and private, so they cannot be accessed. We cannot talk to them directly. This too will make static. Okay, opening connection. Whenever you try to open connection, it will check if connection is no. So it will not open a new connection if connection is already opened, right? It's just gonna skip. Maybe. And another thing. So this is just opening connection. So I put connection and statement in the class properties so we can access them from different methods, right? So this is open, this is close. Okay, so for now, guys, let's not retype it. I'm gonna post it and I'm gonna just push it to GitHub. Now the same thing. If in order to close the connection, if it's not null, we will do connection close and close the statement. So this is the same thing.
And we can create methods for like showing tables and like deleting tables, right?
Yep, that's what we're gonna do.
Oh, we're gonna cover it. Cool.
Oh, deleting tables?
Well, I mean, creating certain data and maybe deleting data from tables. No.
So that we'll see. That's if we have time for that, because that's not really necessary for testing,
Mhm.
but querying will do cover that.
Nice.
Okay, so this is open, this is closed. Now let's do the get column names. Okay, let me put comments. Okay, I think that's enough. So if it's not open, it will open new connection. Closing, the same thing. We can say connection equals null and statement equals null. Just to make sure if we want to reopen it again, they are nulls. Okay, so we got open and close. Now let's get column names. And for column names, we're gonna need a result set. So remember, metadata is data about data. So that's gonna be your column names, column count, and so on. So I'm gonna declare a new array list for column names. Okay. And now, remember, by having column count, we can look through, because like we don't know how many columns are there, and I don't think we have we don't have a way to get the whole list. So by having a count, we can look through each column. Okay. And add column names to our column. So metadata get column name, it returns your column name by the ID or the index of that column. Right? Since it's like an index in an array, we have an array of column names. Just in this case, it starts with 1. And if we look through, we can get each name and put it into our list. Right? And then just return column names. And same thing here, we can assert fail. Make it message for what the reason it failed. Because if we can't get column names, we won't be able to proceed with our test anyway. So we might as well just fail the test. Okay, so let's see how that works. So instead of a test, I'm gonna use main method for now while we are building all this. So we have database utils open connection. We have DB utils get column names, but we need the result set first. Okay, so we don't have a way to get the result set. So let's create another method. So is it too fast? Do you need a more explanation on any of these?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Nazar. Did you make your open and close method static?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
So pretty much everything is static here, just not the close. Hold on. Okay, there you go. So get column names by using result set metadata. Okay, and query will make a simple method for now. We'll accept the string as a query. We already know how to query it, and we can also open connection if it's not open. Okay, so we're just gonna continuously fail our tests if we cannot execute the queries. Cannot execute query, cannot create a connection. So if we throw exception, it's gonna just break all the tests. But if we fail the test, we're gonna just fail specific tests that cannot access the database. You can throw it. So if you choose a different design, you can throw an exception, but declare it throws. That's another way. But then in each test, you will have to either throw again or do the try catch for each and every test, which is annoying. Okay, so now we have query method. Will simply execute your SQL query, right? Select star from account. Okay, so I'm opening connection with our method open. And again, this is just opening connection with the same URL, right? Querying with the method that we created here. This is simple statement execute query. So it's just easier having a method, right? And then with another method, we can get column names. Remember with metadata, we look through each column and get their names and store them in the list of strings and return it in the end. And just print each column. So let's see if that works.
There's a typo in your query.
Which one? And there's something else. I don't even know what that is. Typo. Oh, nice. Detail oriented. From account. Okay. So let's see. That should work. Now, by having column names, we can do more useful things. Like we can create our own. Remember, we can get, let me show you. So if we come, if result set is returned, let's use the account. From result set, you can get the whatever is inside that column by the column name. And we'll talk more about the actual result set now, but now we have the names. So for each name, we can actually get whatever is under that column. Okay, it might make more sense now. And now it's gonna be, so the main thing we're gonna do, and we'll go over everything again. So if you see the structure, what it reminds you? Since you guys learn data structures, what would be the best data structure to make it look like a table?
Maybe hash map.
Okay, so hash map is a good answer, but hash map can only have one unique key, right? So if we have current balance key and we set value minus 24, what do we do with the rest of the records?
Maybe it's hash table.
Okay. Still, how do we store everything?
What about linked list?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense too, but linked list of what?
From idea, same.
So both answers are good. It's just we need to combine them. So having it as a hash map is perfect, or let's say good, for a single row, right? So we can store a single row as a hash map. And then if we have a list of these hash maps, we can have it as a table, right? So we can have how many, for each row, we will have a single hash map, separate hash map. And we will store these hash maps, all of them, in a list. Would that make sense?
An element of each list and the key value would be the column name.
Yes. Yep. So an element of list will be hash map, and key value pairs will be column name plus value, column name plus value. Okay, let's see if we can put it together. List hash map. Just make it map. String object. Okay, so what's gonna happen here? First thing, what we didn't talk much about is the actual result set. I just showed you, but result set is in a form of iterator. Did you guys cover the iterator?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's quickly recap. So iterator, you don't have access to any random element like in array list. You can only go step one by one, right? So whichever you're pointing in, that's the one you're working with. Let's say if I say result set next, I'm pointing to this row. So if I say get value, get string or get index or get integer from first column, I'll be getting this one, right? And to say get string from second column, get string from third column, and so on. Then if I call the result set next, I'm gonna move to the next row. And if I call get integer one, I'm gonna be getting from this column, second row, first column. So when we call result set next, we move down the rows. And when it reaches the end, it's gonna return null. Or the actual position will be null, but the dot next method will return null, will return false, meaning there's no row to work with on this position, so we are at the end. So that's why we have a method while result set next, meaning if it reaches the end, it will return false and it will exit our loop. Right? So let's declare our table. Can anyone say why is object here? Why did I declare this as an object?
So that we can use any object here, like as a general, how's it called, container? Like it's a, I don't know.
Right, yeah, that's correct answer, because we have different data types, double, string. We don't know what's gonna be there, that's why we rather make it just an object. And if we don't really want to make it a string, it's easier to convert to double from an object than from a string. Initially, everything is an object, right? Okay, so that's here. We can just put return table. So we declare table, we return table. Now we just need to populate that table. Okay, another thing that we will need, we need to know what are the column names, right? So we can make our hash map keys meaningful. String columns. And we already have a method for it. So get column names arrests. Okay. And remember, as we talked about it, for each row, we will create a new hash map. So new hash map is created for each row. And now we will try to populate it. So I'm gonna look through each column name. So if we look visually, what's gonna happen? I'm moving to the row, right? I created a hash map. Now I'm gonna look through each of the names. So I'm gonna go ID. I'm gonna store it as a key to my hash map and get the value and store it as a value to the map. And repeat this for each of the column names. And after we move to the new row, we will do the same thing. Go through each column name and so on.
Nazar, can you clarify with the object?
So object is just because like you look here,
I don't
we
get
have,
it why you put
we
it.
have string types, we have doubles, again, this can be a string, it doesn't matter, double, integer, we have all different data types. You don't know what types are there, you cannot make them string, so the values will be as objects. And then when you know your specific, usually like you have a goal, right? When you send the query, so you know what's going to be the result. So if you know it's double, you can cast it after when you deal with it.
So object just helps it to be like interchangeable all the time.
Yeah, just keep it all different types of data. So we don't declare it as a string, but then we deal with double. Or moreover, we don't declare it as a double because we can't put the string there at all. That's why we take the general type. And then when we deal with it, when it comes, then you need to cast it. Okay, so again, map is created for each row, right? Yeah, row. And iterate through each column. So now we have the column name. So all we do is just add it to our row as a key. Column name. And we take from result set. So what's happening here? We put in our map so let's say we have a map that's gonna look like this. Let's say ID equals to whatever it comes from result set. Then name equals to whatever the name is. And eventually we will have a list of these maps. Just make it short, but in our case, it's going to be huge. We take the whole, right? So that's going to look like this. List. Under index 0, we have a map of the first row. Under index of 1, we have the map of the second row, and so on. So let's finish it up. Okay, I cannot bring it back. So we have the column names, right? Because we iterate through column name. So in a hash map, we will use it as a key. And as a value, we will call result set get object under this column name. So let's go to our result. We have column names, so we'll take column name. Okay, this is bad color. Column name as a key to the hash map. And then we call result set get ID. So it will bring us the ID under the row that we specified. And since we're pretty much looping through everything, remember, initially we are going through each row, and inside the row, we are going through each column. So if we point to the row, we'll go through all the columns, create a hash map. Key as the name of the column, value as a value under that column in that row. Okay? Is it confusing? So iterate through each row. So we iterate through each row, and for each row, we iterate through each column. Okay, we got the map populated. So before we exit this loop, we need to add our row to the table. And that's going to repeat. So let's see how it works. Hope I didn't miss anything. Return. We have return. Now I don't need the column names. I'm just simply gonna convert and remember, we used list of hash maps. And now let's print it out. So table for each. So I'm just gonna print each map on a new line.
Nazar, in this scenario, where is the map string object? Here is a string, you're gonna cast it to string?
Yeah, when you print it, it's automatically casting to string.
That's why you put there a string, right?
No, string here is the column name. I still have an object here.
Okay.
See, like we did string object. So the same way I declared it, it wouldn't match. But when you call system out already converts all the objects to string, since object has toString method. ToString method comes from an object. Even way it's so hard to find it here.
Do you have a lot of automated test cases related to database?
All of them. I don't have UI, I don't have API, just database.
And you don't do that manually. Everything has to be automated there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nazar, why you use double colon in system.out.println?
It's just a quick way to do that. You can remember it, but if I don't do it this way, I'll have to do for each, right? For declare map. So that's just in Java. It's a like lambda expression. But the regular way is just printing, right? Map in the table.
And you can use it from any collection.
Yes.
Okay.
Did you learn, Java after you finished DevX? Because Lambda, we didn't study it.
Yeah. Nobody covers. No bootcamp covers Lambda. So that's something you have to go through on your own. Yeah, I did. I didn't spend like so much learning. I just tried to use it as much as possible. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just go read. You know.
I see.
Okay, so let's see the result. We actually didn't look at it. So see, we have each row on the new line, and you have it in a map format: account number, ownership type, payment term, owner ID, exactly how it is in the table. So now, instead of printing it, we can do, so you can find anything you want. We're looping through, you can say if map get, hold on, we get from hash map. If map contains keys is one thing. Account numbers, for example. Okay, somebody needs to help me here. Numbers. Oh, okay, I just didn't finish. So if you're looking for certain account number, you can just find it in your list, right? And then compare something. Expected payment amount, let's say. 0. And cast it to double because it's an object, right? That's it. So something like that. But of course, it's better for you to create the right query. So if I know what I'm looking for payment amount for this account. So why would I select from all the table if I can just square account ID
count number. Right? So I just build a better query. Now my result will be the specific thing I need. I don't have to look through, search for it, and so on. But we'll get back to that later. Let's leave it as an example.
So we can do both way, right?
Yeah, but it's
And
better.
SQL way easier.
Of course, yeah. It's easier,
Okay.
better, it's faster. You know, you don't have to, first of all, transfer a huge amount of data from your database.
Yeah, makes sense.
And you don't have to look through searching for data you need. You can, in SQL, it's going to be faster. It's still going to search, but it's going to search on the server. So it's still faster because they're more powerful and efficient for this. Okay, and we were just printing it out. Okay, time we have 10 minutes. We should go through this quickly, but do you guys have any questions?
I just have question with where we use iterator.
So result set is in a form of iterator. See,
yeah, but here is like, is it has next or just next?
It's just, it should have has next as well, but nobody uses that because, no, it doesn't even have, because that next returns true or false.
Oh, okay. It works like has next and iterator, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Now got it.
That next in iterator returns that specific object, right? But in the result set, it's pointing to the new object or new row, and you work with it by the same result set.
Okay, now I got it. I thought it's iterator from iterator interface.
Yeah. So result set itself is interface, but yeah. So everything here is interface, connection statement and result set. They're all interface, and they all are implemented by the drivers. So in our case, it's MySQL driver. So if you look connection is interface. So they don't have any, like, they only have declared methods, but they don't have them implemented. Each driver has to implement these methods in their own for their specific database. Okay, one thing to say, this is pretty much enough for most of the testing that you've been doing, that you're gonna be doing. With this method, just getting query into list of maps, it's more than enough to cover against 100% against UI scenarios. With API scenarios, you still can get the proper results for your validations. We will be covering different ways and more complex ways, but it will make your life easier if you work with API. But this, what we covered today, it's pretty much enough for anything that you are doing with databases.
So this is a setup, right? And we will practice it, correct?
Yeah. No, we will add so much things. It's just going to get confusing and a little complicated. And we will do it in 1 or 2 classes. So the main thing, just I want to say, so you don't freak out, you can do your work with only these methods. Just get it as a list of maps and work with the list of maps. Okay, so yeah, I'll leave it to you guys. I'll push it. Let me see what I have. So do you guys have any questions? Right. Oh,
But will it be available immediately after you push it, or they should approve your?
so I'm not gonna push to them. I'm gonna push to my own and give you guys the link.
Oh, okay.
This way it's gonna be faster. Okay, that's upsetting. Okay. Any other questions overall? How complicated was it?
A little complicated because we start forgetting Java, but overall, I think I'll need to rewatch it once and I'll be fine.
Not too
Yeah, it
bad.
was kind of too fast.
Yeah, a bit more complicated for me.
I mean, if we would write it like, step by step and kind of slower than you, then I guess we can get it better.
We won't have time to cover everything. So it's good if you didn't try to retype behind me, just listen, and then I'm gonna send it, go over it. We'll answer questions and repeat everything next class. So that's gonna make it more, like it will make it stick more, and then do more complicated stuff.
Nazar, so they will ask on the job interview, they may ask us the question, how do you set up your connection to the SQL database, right?
Yeah, they might if they're interested. It's not more like to check you.
Mm.
It's just if they're not.
Can we answer like like it's too complicated, let me bring it, or let me send you a repo of mine, like
No, don't do that. No. Say, yeah, we have different utils. It's gonna take a lot of time to talk about them. But yeah, we'll prepare something just like overall to make them understand that you know what you're talking about. It's just too much thing to say. And
also
especially,
about, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was interested in like Java, like do you practice it every day? Like, did you practice lead code and stuff? Because for us, it seems to be like very difficult right now. And I keep hearing, from instructors that on the job interview, they are going to ask us lead code questions. And,
Yeah.
I cannot solve some of the easy ones. And
I know, yeah, I did practice a lot during the course. So that helped me a lot. I don't know, I don't practice anymore lately, but I just write a lot of code, I guess, at work. I don't do much manual testing, but I did heavily practice. Like I would spend 5 to 8 hours some days just Java practice. I completely skipped my soft skills, which was a big mistake. So don't do that. But just because of the Java skills, it wasn't too bad. My soft skills were horrible, but Java skills just kind of pulled me out. So, and I think I mentioned this to you in the beginning. You're either great in Java or great in soft skills, or good in both. So good in both is always better than great in either of these.
all
So
right.
good to have your limit but practicing, yeah, I would suggest you start practicing now because database questions might not come up on interview. Soft skills, I've had a lot of interviews that were just technical. They didn't ask anything like at all. Just give the task, solve the task, give some Java question. Of course, tell me about your project on the beginning for 10-15 minutes and done. Everything else Java. So hit the Java because Java will be in 90% of interviews, and other things, like I would say Java, soft skills, API, database.
Nazar, for example,
Selenium.
why you don't add all like git add/a? Why you
Because
do
they have
this?
these files. I need to reformat it because there was no git ignore. So, and I don't want to really deal with this. So I'm just gonna commit what I need. So if I add specific file, I'm gonna commit specific file. Right? So now you see I committed. I still have my things that I don't need.
Mhm.
I might actually need this one. I forgot about it. Yeah, I can quickly show you guys. I might have some of my old project since, I don't know, it's Saturday. Okay. Let me just push it because I usually forget. Got the list. It's not the vision. Okay, so I pushed it. I'm gonna share this. Are you guys still here?
Yes.
Yeah, we're here.
Oh,
Okay, so you can clone it. It's gonna be the same thing with just additional database. So let me see, where did I have my... So yeah, when you set up your framework, I'm gonna stop recording this. I know how to do that. Okay, I think I need to stop sharing. And I'll stop recording.